Most people think debt is simple. You borrow money, you pay it back. That's the whole story. But that's not the whole story. Not even close. The reason most people never build real wealth, not just a decent income, but actual, lasting, generational wealth, is because they never truly understood what debt is, how it works, and how the people at the top of the financial ladder use it completely differently than everyone else does. And nobody ever sat them down and explained it plainly. So that's what this is. A plain explanation. No jargon. No assumptions. Just the truth about debt, broken down in a way that actually makes sense. Let's start at the beginning. What debt actually is. Debt is borrowed time. That's the simplest way to put it. When you take out a loan, someone is giving you access to money you haven't earned yet. They're letting you use the future version of your income today. In exchange, they charge you a fee for that privilege. That fee is called interest. Most people hear the word interest and think about a percentage, 6%, 9%, 30%, but they don't stop to think about what that percentage actually means in practice, what it costs them in real dollars over real time. Here's an example. Say you borrow $10,000 at 10% interest over 5 years. You might look at that and think, okay, 10% of $10,000 is $1,000. So I'm paying $11,000 total. That's not bad, but that's not how it works. Because interest doesn't just apply to what you borrowed. It applies to the remaining balance every single month. So in the early months of your loan, most of your payment goes toward interest, not toward paying down what you actually owe. The principal, which is the original amount you borrowed, barely moves at first. This is called amortization. And most people have never heard that word, which is exactly why most people feel like they're paying, and the balance never seems to go down. The cost of carrying debt. There's a phrase that separates people who understand money from people who don't. The cost of carrying debt. Anyone can understand borrowing. What most people don't understand is that the real danger isn't the amount you borrow. It's the rate at which the debt grows while you're carrying it. Think about two people. Both borrow $20,000. Person A borrows at 7% interest. Person B borrows at 29% interest, which is a common rate on credit cards in the United States right now. Person A, if they make minimum payments, will pay off their balance in a few years and pay maybe $3,000 in interest total. Person B, making minimum payments, could spend over a decade paying and still owe more than they originally borrowed. The interest is compounding, meaning it's being added to the balance, and then interest is being charged on that new, higher balance. It feeds on itself. It grows faster than most people can pay it down. This is not a hypothetical. This is the financial reality of hundreds of millions of people right now. And the difference between those two situations isn't luck. It's not income. It's understanding. Here is the concept that the wealthy understand, and most people don't. Not all debt is the same. There is debt that costs you, and there is debt that works for you. The ability to tell the difference is one of the most important financial skills that exists, and it's almost never taught in school. Bad debt is debt you take on to buy something that loses value. A car, a vacation, consumer goods, clothes. You borrow money, you spend it, and the thing you bought is worth less the moment you have it. Meanwhile, the debt stays. You are paying for something that is shrinking in value with money that is growing in cost. Good debt, the kind wealthy people use deliberately, is debt that is attached to something that earns more than it costs. A rental property that generates monthly income. A business loan that funds equipment that produces revenue. A mortgage on a home in a market where values are rising. The debt has a cost, yes, the interest rate, but the asset it finances generates a return that exceeds that cost. When the return on the asset is higher than the interest rate on the loan, you are using someone else's money to make yourself money. That is what leverage means, and that is the mechanism behind a staggering percentage of the wealth that exists in the world today. The wealthy don't avoid debt. They avoid bad debt. They use good debt as a tool with precision and intention. Now, here is the part that most financial content skips over, because it's uncomfortable. Some debt is not just expensive. It is designed, deliberately, structurally, to be impossible to escape. Payday loans, certain private lenders, some auto title loans, high-rate credit products marketed specifically to people with low credit scores and limited options. These financial products are engineered so that the interest accrues faster than a normal person can realistically pay it down. The business model depends on customers staying in debt. Every payment you make is mostly interest. The principal barely moves. You feel like you're making progress, and you're not. This is legal in many places. It shouldn't be, but it is. The people who fall into these traps are not stupid. They are people who needed money and didn't have better options, and they signed something they didn't fully understand because the cost wasn't explained to them in plain terms. A 31% annual interest rate, compounding monthly, on a $60,000 loan means that after 18 months of missed payments, you don't owe $60,000 anymore. You owe close to $95,000. The debt has grown by $35,000 while you were struggling to survive it. That is not a mistake in the system. That is the system working exactly as it was designed to work. Understanding this doesn't just protect you from being trapped. It gives you the clarity to recognize when someone you love is being trapped and potentially to help them find a way out. Most people assume that a debt is fixed. You owe what you owe. The number on the paper is the number. That is not true. Debt is negotiable, especially when the creditor has reason to believe they might not collect otherwise. A creditor who is facing potential legal exposure, regulatory scrutiny, or the genuine possibility of bankruptcy from the debtor will often settle for less than the full amount owed, because something is better than nothing, and a legal battle is expensive and uncertain. This is why knowledge is leverage. If you know that a loan was originated in a way that may violate usury laws, laws that cap how much interest can legally be charged, then you have something to negotiate with. If you can document that the terms of the loan crossed into a legal gray area, and you can make clear that you are prepared to pursue that argument formally, the creditor now has a reason to settle. This is not about being dishonest. It is about understanding the actual landscape of the situation you are in, rather than assuming the other party has all the power. They don't always, but most people never figure that out because they never look. A debt of $95,000 can sometimes be settled for $61,000. A settlement of $61,000 can sometimes be funded by calling in favors, offering prepayment discounts to existing clients, selling non-essential assets, and writing a clean promissory note to a family member at 7% interest rather than accepting 31% from a predatory lender. None of that is magic. It is methodical problem solving applied to a financial structure, and it is available to anyone who understands how debt actually works. Here is what shifts when you genuinely internalize this knowledge. You stop seeing your debt as a fixed sentence. You start seeing it as a structure, one that was built a certain way and can sometimes be rebuilt differently. You learn to read loan documents, not just sign them. You learn to calculate the true cost of carrying each obligation, and you prioritize paying off high-rate debt aggressively while allowing low-rate debt to run its course if the money can work harder elsewhere. You start understanding that the people who build lasting wealth are not people who earn more than everyone else. Many of them don't. They are people who understand the cost of money, what it costs to borrow it, what it earns when deployed wisely, and how to use leverage without being consumed by it. Most people spend their lives working for money. The wealthy, over time, arrange for money to work for them, and the mechanism that makes that possible, almost always, is a sophisticated understanding of debt. Not fear of it, not avoidance of it, understanding. The student loans are still there for most people watching this. The car note is still there. The credit card balance is still there. But the way you read those numbers, that can change today. And that change, quiet as it seems, is where everything else begins.